The truth about transference empathy. 1. In clinical psychology, transference empathy is a phenomenon frequently encountered by practitioners, and the psychoanalytic school places particular emphasis on it. Some analysts even believe that transference empathy is the cornerstone of analytical work. We hold a different view. To clarify this concept, we begin with Freud's text and step by step reveal the true meaning of this concept. Transference empathy is a translation of the phenomenon first discovered and named Übertragen by Freud. Transference emphasizes structure, while empathy highlights emotion. We refer to Freud's description and definition of this phenomenon in introductory lectures on psychoanalysis, 1915 to 1917. When this phenomenon manifests at a certain stage of analysis. 2. At this point, the analysand stops discussing their own psychological conflicts and suddenly develops a special interest in the analyst. 3. The analytical relationship becomes very harmonious. The analysand becomes particularly compliant with the analyst's directives, expresses gratitude, and actively follows the analyst's instructions, participating in the analytical process. For the analysand may even tirelessly talk about or praise the analyst in daily life. 5. Until a certain moment, resistance emerges, and the analysand claims that no further memories arise. 6. The earlier positive process was termed positive transference, positive empathy by Freud, while the subsequent resistance process was termed negative transference, negative empathy. 7. This phenomenon frequently occurs in analytical work between analysands and analysts of the opposite sex, particularly female analysands and male analysts. The intense emotion was initially defined as love. 8. However, unlike love in the general sense, analysands can repeatedly generate this emotion in relationships with different analysts. Even in relationships where love seems impossible, such as between a young analysand and an elderly analyst, Freud defined this emotion as attachment. 9. In same-sex analytical relationships, intense emotions are defined as attachment. 10. Freud believed that the analysand's attachment to the analyst does not originate from the analysis, nor is it related to the analyst personally. This emotion merely replays something that previously occurred in the analysand's life, reenacting a certain history or relationship. 11. Therefore, the goal of analytical work is to transform the analysand's reenactment into recollections articulated through language, allowing the analysand to return to the original scenes and relationships to understand the present situation. 12. Thus, whether termed transference or empathy, the concept of trans reflects the core of Freudian theory. Something from the past reappears in the present analysis. In comparison, transference is a more accurate translation than empathy, and we will use this term henceforth. 2. However, the situations we encounter in clinical practice do not align with Freud's descriptions. First, temporality. Most of the time, transference appears at the very beginning of analytical work. Second, not every analysand develops transference toward the analyst, and analytical work does not necessarily rely on transference to be effective. Before clarifying the phenomenon of transference, we need to first explain the model of emotional generation. 1. Emotions arise from affects. Freud discovered this model early on. In the rat men case, he defined joyful affect generates the emotion of love, while anger affect generates the emotion of hatred. 2. Freud's affect emotion theory only involves the logic of two types of affects and emotions, which is flawed. Specifically, he did not distinguish between love and like. Joyful affect can only generate the emotion of like, while the emotion of love is particularly related to the affect of expectation. 3. Only by linking expectation and love can the enigma of transference be fully explained. 4. The affect of expectation is particularly directed toward life and the future. It is also related to the longing for the other in romantic love. The superposition of these two is the truth behind the phenomenon of transference in analysis. 5. As we previously mentioned, analytical work deals with life dilemmas, particularly the theme of how one moves toward a meaningful future. When analysts place their hopes for the future on the analyst, the latter assumes the role of a savior. At this point, the analyst falls into a state of intense dependence and attachment toward the analyst. 6. In this emotional state, the analyst entrusts their future to the analyst while making themselves inseparable from the other. This surrender and attachment closely resemble the state of being in passionate love. It is also a dangerous moment. If the analyst has malicious intentions, they can easily manipulate the analyst or even play with the analyst's life. 2 types of people prone to transference. 1. Psychoanalytic trainees. In training analysis, the analyst's future is highly intertwined with the analyst's, making it easy for intense emotions to develop toward the analyst. 2. Normal analysts in a state of isolation. Isolation does not mean being alone, but refers to psychological isolation and helplessness. Especially when isolated individuals face adversity in life, they easily develop strong attachment to those who can help them. Our focus is precisely on these isolated individuals. 3. Isolated and helpless individuals develop intense longing and emotional investment toward those who can help them. The so-called can is a hypothesis, which explains why intense fondness and attachment arise the moment an individual chooses an analyst. 4. Therefore, transference does not originate from pre-existing complexes or symptoms from the past, but is the result of timely computation by the affect emotion system under special existential conditions. Anyone in a prolonged state of isolation can develop such emotions towards someone who can help them. 5. Clinicians should look beyond the emotion and recognize the analyst's state of isolation and helplessness. The goal of analysis is to help the analyst rebuild connections with others and their environment in their own life, rather than maintaining or even exacerbating the analyst's isolation for the analyst's benefit, thereby completely controlling the analyst's life. 3. The smiling assassin. Lacanian analysis has 2 characteristics: prolonged silence and rarely offering constructive advice on real-life dilemmas, or outright avoiding discussions of real-life difficulties. For analysts who already assume the analyst to be a savior, such practices not only fail to make them leave analysis, but instead strengthen their attachment to it. Many Lacanian analysts, to reinforce the analyst's emotional investment in them, deliberately create or intensify the analyst's state of isolation through methods including but not limited to: 1. Instigating conflicts in parent-child relationships. 2. Damaging romantic relationships. 3. Deliberately concealing the fact that they have a partner or are even married with children, falsely claiming to be single to maintain the analyst's fantasy space. 4. To achieve complete control over the analyst, they may advise and induce the analyst to abandon their current job or academic path and instead study psychoanalysis. Thus, the analyst's daily life becomes increasingly intertwined with the analyst, and their relationship grows closer. The analyst cannot find the right path or methods to resolve difficulties in reality. In analysis, they face the analyst's polite silence and smile. They cannot pinpoint any wrongdoing or rule violations by the analyst. Yet in reality, they may be heading further down the wrong path, their condition worsening, and in some cases, even leading to extremes. Therefore, practitioners must recognize the truth about transference and resist their own selfish desires. Our work is to help analysts move forward in their own lives, not to bind them to us long-term.